may join us remotely.
Okay, it's 3:30. I'd like to open the meeting. First item on the agenda is to review the minutes of October 22nd. Any comments or questions?
You want to do roll call first?
Oh, we could do that, sure.
Shepherd here?
Mona Lop here.
Bill Irving?
Peter Royce.
Peter Irving.
Okay. Sorry about that, Scott. I told you I wasn't terribly formal. I warned you. Okay, now any questions or comments on what we did on the minutes?
No.
Motion to accept?
I'll second. All approved?
Shepherd, aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any questions on where we were last time? Any questions for what we reviewed?
Nope.
Okay. So we are on to the police budget, I assume. So we have the chief with us. Any questions for police? We had a couple that I'm sure were forwarded to you.
You did. Relatively easy, in all honesty. First question forwarded to me was, will the additional staff member require a new cruiser? The answer to that is simply no. We have a cruiser budgeted this year that, given the status of the fleet, is not an extra cruiser. It will be a replacement cruiser, and the fleet as it is will be sufficient for the we plan on getting rid of, I would tell you, in theory, the 2019 Dodge Charger. I say in theory because we're experiencing some issues with the current Ford Explorer. So whichever issue is cheaper to fix will be the cruiser that stays in the fleet, and the other one will go. So maybe a 2021 Explorer, maybe a 2019. But the fleet will maintain status quo. As far as the capital reserve is concerned, I would like to see eventually a balance of about 200,000. The reason for that, in line with plans we have at the PD, is we have two major expenditures coming up. These are going to need to be replaced coming up 2025, 2026. That was just about a $100,000 project the last time we did it. I hope that that will be a little bit less expensive this time because the hardware and whatnot, again, in theory, should be able to be reused. The laptops will need to be replaced. And taser / body worn camera is coming up this year as well. We have a multitude of directions we can go with that, which is going to need to be a board of selectmen decision in the end. My preference would be to front load that plan out of the reserve because that's going to be a very hefty bill, but that is going to also be a bill that's going to be broken annually after that. My hope is that we move that to contracts and pay the body worn camera and taser bill, all three contracts all at once. But again, that's going to be presentations and decisions made. But to point to major projects coming up.
Is there a separation between what you get out of the police detail and what you get out of the capital reserve? For expenditures?
We can't, I don't believe we can use anything in police detail for the body worn camera / taser side. To your point, I believe we'd be able to use it for laptops, but
I thought we bought a cruiser once out of that.
we did. And the justification behind that was because we use the cruisers for details as well.
Okay.
I'm uncertain, and again, that's certainly, I'll explore that. I don't know where the MDTs are used in the cruisers, if we could use that avenue of.
Okay. Nor am I. I'm unsure. That's what I was
It's
asking.
certainly worth exploring with the trustees, but I haven't explored that yet. And again, I hope we can get grants for these. We're not exploring grants. I haven't seen anything as of yet. We were very fortunate the last time that we came $1,000. If we can get them again, we'll be getting them again. Just have not seen anything that.
Yeah, so you have two capital or two reserve funds. You have the communication upgrade emergency service one and the police equipment.
Right.
It seems like the first one has a lot of money. The reserve equipment does not. Is that my understanding right?
So the first one is not just PD, that's shared between us and fire for radio purposes. As you may or may not know, radios are extremely expensive. I'll be purchasing, hopefully before the end of the fiscal year, some portable, Portable radios run to the tune of about $5,000. So when you're equipping our police department / the fire department, that can add up very base radios or. So yeah, that has a lot of money sitting there because unfortunately, they have us.
Can a laptop be a communication, emergency communication?
Again, I have not explored that. Certainly willing to go down as the time comes up. The 526 when these we'll explore every open. I haven't done communications with laptops because these.
Yeah. I mean, it just, we don't have the running balance of any of these reserves, right? So you know how we used to do it last year with the highway department where with each equipment, what year's going to be charged to, how much money was in the capital reserve each year. We don't have that for most of these or any of these so far as I've seen this year.
Capital reserve, well, within.
Because, you know, the thing you want to do is make sure you're not getting below zero.
The capital reserve, you mean the trust funds?
Yeah.
Because we got a report. Did you not get the trustee of the trust funds report?
I have that, but so for example, if you just take the police equipment, he's looking for quite a bit of money
200,
to come
right.
out of that, right?
Right.
But if we had the capital reserve all listed out, let me just go back to the highway. Remember, we used to have a sheet, it may still be, and I don't think it is, where they would say, okay, in 2026, we had this amount of money. 2027, we're going to be adding this amount of money from the warrant articles, and we're going to need this truck. And that truck's going to cost that much. Therefore, at the end of the year, we had this much money. Right? We
My
did that-
impression was Mark did a pretty good job of that this year.
Yeah, but I don't
Yeah.
think we have that on all of these.
No.
And it would be useful to have to see, you know, because it wasn't clear to me that police equipment wouldn't be enough as it looks today. Is that correct?
I don't have it. We were right at about 120, right in that ballpark. I thought
Yeah, 114 right now.
Yeah, no, we're at about 114-ish. With what I'm requesting this year. No, I'm still going to be below where I want to be. But I think between this year and next year, we cover where I want, it's going to drag us way down.
Is there a reason why we don't have a capital warrant article for trucks and, well, emergency vehicles? Any?
The answer that was given to me years ago, and this was before I was the chief of police, is that the boards in the past did not want to see ebbs and flows. In reality, that argument has become moot because there is no ebb and flow cruiser request. From my standpoint, and I won't speak for Chief Walker because obviously his equipment is a lot different than mine. I'm a cruiser a year, and then every few years, in theory, we should be doing 2 cruisers. We've been able to avoid that 2 cruiser cycle by adding an admin car last year, and this year we did the research and we were able to demo cruiser. It was a 2-year-old model with only 7,000 miles on it. That was a demonstration car for Maine's version of that cruiser. So we were able to get a cruiser package with $11,000-ish left. So by keeping those items open, we've avoided this 2-year cruiser cycle by inserting mid-year cruiser. Other than that, I'm no ebb and flow because I'm a cruiser. That's why we've never done it through capital reserve. It was originally the ebb and flow argument. Now it's just an possible.
Okay.
Is that a Tahoe that you got?
So no. Which one?
Well, I saw one thing in here, you were looking to get a Tahoe, and my question is, everything else has been Ford up to this point, and how are you gonna swap the equipment over because
There is
nothing
no more
fits?
swapping equipment, unfortunately.
Okay.
Our days of the Crown Vics and going from year to year, even with the Explorers, the years are different and equipment doesn't fit. The mid-range purchase this year was another Explorer. It's Unit 8. You'll see Deputy Chief Campbell in it mostly. It came almost outfitted entirely. I've got to add radar unit, which I'm still waiting for, and the barriers, which I have parts and pieces to, and the Sally port that we're going to make fit. So that one's going to be okay. The Tahoe purchase is next year's purchase.
Okay.
The Tahoe purchase is gonna be my 2025 Cruiser. Again, I was able to find a prior model year Tahoe, get it for $45,000 versus 52 or 53-ish thousand dollars for state bid on a Tahoe, so I was able to save about $8. Fortunately, we've had a very good sale year this year, as Peter can attest to. I'm gonna be able to outfit the Tahoe coming in.
So there's no advantage then to going with Ford or Chevy, it all depends on the best price?
Correct.
Okay.
And this year I was able to get a Tahoe for essentially the same price. Charges are eating this up on me.
I was going to say, as long as it's not a Dodge.
Yeah, the charges are killing us. I don't know that the time goes around. I'm willing to roll the dice, at least the Ford.
And Motorola's still the only game for radios? Nobody else has come up with anything?
People in the area have tried other than Motorola. The sheriff's office tried Kenwood. Some folks in the sheriff's office spoke okay of the Kenwoods. So everybody on the street, I apologize. But a lot of tears in my eyes right now, so I'm water over that.
Any other questions for the chief?
Yeah,
Mona?
go ahead.
So when you talk about buying,
Move your mic closer, please.
when you're speaking about buying equipment, are you able, does the state have a contract to buy vehicles?
For most things, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
For vehicles specifically, yes. And state bid moves from year to year to which vendor gets the state bid. Currently, Ford, but I don't know that next year's. We just rotated into next year's state bids, and I haven't yet looked to see as well. As I said, next year's Cruiser's already dealt with for me. I was able to source it well under state bid from an outside vendor, McGovern, who we've gone cars down to Massachusetts. So I was able to get well under state bids. I won't have to worry about state bid until 6 of this.
Thank you.
I had a couple questions about staffing. I wasn't quite clear what was happening with the staffing now and what the net impact is on that. Can you just quickly review that?
So the staffing presentation is available online for anybody that wants to go look at it, get that caveat out there. So we are significantly understaffed based on any metric that you want. Your staffing model down shows somewhere in between staff, obviously. So what the selectmen approved earlier this fall was the addition of half a position. So I'll have July 1, we'll be adding 1 full-time, and that will become obviously. So it's going to be for 6 months of this year, so it's only a 50% impact. And the full impact will be
Yeah, that's fine. I know we've talked about police staffing for a long time. There's been a lot of question of what metrics you use.
Yep.
And I just happened today to be going through the annual report, and it has police statistics in there. And it actually was quite interesting because it showed that the number of events or activities you did have increased 23% this year. It'd be interesting to see, because that seems like a definitive number we might be able to track and use to persuasively convince more people that police are needed.
So one of the staffing models I use relies on our statistics in the town of Barrington. It is a calculation based on total calls for service, investigations, investigations, which are major, motor vehicle work, etc. And again, that is comprised in the presentation I did for them, based on our calls for service. So it is actually huge.
Do you remember when that was?
When the presentation was.
Yeah. Because I'd like to go see it. Because one of the things I am trying to do is note future expenditures. And it seems like almost everything we see increasing is staffing related. my sense from looking at all the budget presentations is, you have the incidentals, which aren't really driving the budget. It's adding new positions. It's yearly step increases and costs of insurance and things like that. So I've been really trying to get a sense of going forward where those. Sure, that'd be fine. Yeah, okay, thanks.
Oh, I'd like to see that too, please.
Likewise.
Bill and Mona?
If I email it to Amy.
Yeah,
she gets
that'd be
the
great.
whole group,
Yeah.
Thank you,
I will
Amy.
send you the entire staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you have a
thanks, Amy.
suggested recommended number of police to be added over time?
So we haven't got into future staffing yet. So the Bartel formula, which is what I just talked about, calls for 21 points. I like the years left. I don't believe. I like to see the addition of one. So I can see us talking about it. 720. And I won't be. So conversation again in 27.
And what are you seeing today with retention? Are you having troubles? Do you
What am I seeing or what is the industry seeing?
using?
I am, knock on wood, doing well. Just one off of the last year. That wasn't anything that was.
Mhm.
Entirely, it was doing okay retention wise. Out of that, those situations can't keep kids from retiring after 30 years. Tyler Kerrs of the world not moving down to South Carolina. I don't want to do it. Somebody to miss.
Right, right.
I don't want to lose somebody to that situation. You're doing okay from a retention standpoint because that said, Officer Morse left in had a candidate tested out. I'm going to hire less than an individual.
Does that mean already accredited?
Not necessarily. I have been very happy with the non-certified individuals that we hired. Officer Sarasi, Officer Resnich. Last 3 non-hired and we. And professionally, the problem that we're seeing through is we're just moving chess pieces on a board. Taking cops from X and moving them on. That's not filling the gaps. If we need X number of cops in the state of New Hampshire or in Stratford County, and we have X minus, just moving the certified cop from one agency to the next, that's not making it X minus, staying at X minus 20. The individual they just processed with us was not certified. He was a new hire. Hired him and sent him to the academy. Staff as training goes, it wouldn't hurt my feelings at all to hire somebody to train them. He and I right now. It's not as attractive as it used to be. Barrington, that is a professional issue.
So what if we were to, somebody else were to move, as an example? What is the impact on your operations?
One, doesn't hit us too badly. Shift schedules and at work. And a little shift, then two, it becomes very notice. Or, and you'll see on.
All right. I'm just wondering if we need to consider that more when we're in our planning. so we don't get into a state where we are down more than we want. So maybe it requires having one extra person on board just to be sure that attrition doesn't actually affect our.
You are right now in Stratford County looking at two towns. Very near, all right, where one PD is gone. Time. Efficient game guide, time to work, and the other here, chief retired. Expected to. Time guy that on the books is that came quickly, and the town was not. Hurt, and he was injured, but a shooting incident. We have another town in Stratford County right now where the part-time chief is back. Sure, they've got one problem.
So
When
maybe,
that hemorrhage starts,
Right.
the hemorrhage is very difficult to maintain. In front of you, record and say, there is a staffing level that I have in my head, that when you reach it, I'm gonna retire. Because I'm not gonna do what Rich Krause did up in Milton.
I guess the same question's true for fire. It seems like the most basic service we provide. So maybe, can you just ask Connor to some point in the future, just have a few remarks about that, what his thoughts are? And does that seem reasonable?
Absolutely.
Well, I'm trying to not jump in too much because this is what's going on in law enforcement
Right.
throughout the country. No one wants the job. We can't get people that want to take the job. When I started, there were 600 applicants that to take the written test. Now you'll get 10, maybe?
Not even. And I have less time on Mr. Irving, but my world, I applied for one position in the town of Barrington, and the town gym was full of applicants. Had the town gym full. I remember when Chief Conway shut the door in the face of an applicant who, like, at 8:01, Chief Conway was shutting the door for applicants.
It just, sorry, yeah. It just makes me think that we need to change our approach to staffing in order to address that risk, right?
Well, I would think we need to, yes, look at bringing more people on because somebody's going to leave.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. And you don't want it to be a crisis when they leave.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden, everybody's running around, how are we going to do this? And to lower the standards to bring new people on it's a crisis. You can't do that because it will come back to bite you. So you need to maintain the standards and get good people and keep them.
Agreed.
And that's why it's important, in my opinion, that we properly compensate our staff and make this a good working environment for them, because otherwise they'll just go somewhere else.
Mhm.
And the chief, I'm sure, can tell you the same stories I will about Officer Rex leaving a PD after being certified and getting $10,000 to go to another community.
Yeah.
Just like that. You change your badge.
Right. So if it's harder to find somebody, I think you have to have more people on board to address, that chance that you have more than one person off.
So it's a nationwide thing.
I agree.
And it's something we do need to address, and I applaud you. I think you're where you want to go with this is good. We need to get our staffing up so that when somebody, if and when someone leaves,
Right.
it's not going to be a crisis. And we don't end up with our command staff having to work the street all the time, and then other stuff doesn't get done. And
It snowballs.
so,
Yeah. Okay.
so.
Thank you very much.
I have
Bill?
more questions. The police earn time buyout, 60% of their annual earned time accumulation can be paid out to them. What is the limit? Is that limited? Do they have a certain number of earned time hours that they can't exceed if they use or lose?
We all cap at 320 annually.
Okay,
We can't carry more than 300. Breakdown, I'm at the top of the scale at this point, I earn. That's the only right off the top of my head because I don't pay attention. They can buy 60% of.
over the 320. They got to reach the,
Right, they've got, no, you only have to carry 80 hours.
okay,
We have to carry 80 hours in our bank. We can't buy below.
okay,
So
all right,
anything over 80 hours up to 60%.
okay. So in the 80 hours is what? Doing the math here, that's 60, that's like 3 weeks of time, okay.
Yeah,
I
by the
just,
time you keep earning more.
okay, all right. May I continue, Mr. Chair?
Oh, please.
On your police communications, Verizon, 15 laptops, detected cell. Are the cell phones on FirstNet with AT&T or Verizon?
We're all on Verizon.
On Verizon.
Everything is on Verizon.
You didn't go with the FirstNet?
We get a town plan.
Okay,
You know.
okay. I think that's it for me.
Okay, anything else? Thank you, Chief.
Something every year.
Oh, one more question.
Oh.
Excuse me, just one more question. Pope Memorial, the shelter fees, approximately how many animals are we taking over there? What's our,
I can't tell you specific numbers, but quite a few. We have a lot of,
okay.
I wish it was otherwise, but it's not.
Do we know, do they get claimed? Are they from here or are they just?
I would tell you anecdotally that probably 90% of the dogs get claimed.
Okay.
Also, some of those individuals, we have to transport and house them. We also charge out on them. Do something.
So if the owner is found,
Yes.
then we
Yeah.
get reimbursement for that.
When they
Okay.
pick up the dog at Hope Memorial, we touch base, we find out who the owner. If we don't already know, they're an ID tag or just dogs that we happen across quite a bit. And then we do issue some.
Okay.
We can't do the IDs that they have internally, but Pope can, right?
The chips?
Yep.
Correct, yeah. We had a chip reader for a number of years that died, and they're a little pricier than I care to spend to get one.
Yep.
But yeah. Pope
But I know they have them, yeah.
Luckily, with the advent of social media and the Facebooks, get a lot of those dogs dealt with before we ever have. People generally want to come before they,
Okay, once again, are we done? Jump in. Last call. Okay, thanks. Thanks, George.
Thanks, Chief.
I will email that off to you, Mr. Story.
Great, thank you. We don't want to deprive you of your presentation, George.
I'm just gonna go do it.
Okay, good. Okay. Jess, you're up.
How are you guys today?
Fine, thank you.
Fabulous, thank you.
Okay. As you can remember from last year, I hate presenting, so I wrote it out so it makes sense and I can speak. I just made a really short and sweet. It's kind of like about like why we're asking for the capital reserve. The Barrington Recreation Department has continued to grow following the 2019 process allowed the Recreation Department to understand and the recreation has resulted in utilization of in the 2024 decision fifth district they kind of have holding us into like that park and recreation. The recommendation from the ABC last year was, with that kind of like transition into establish that maintenance and future industry. So that is why we kind of did that this year. Worked really hard over the last year. We have one thing left on our meeting. All of those tasks over the last 3 years. So as you guys can see, 2019, 2020, we had a few other line items that were in here, that we decided during 2020, and everything was financially up in the air. We didn't know which direction the town was going. Decided to kind of take the line items out of the operating budget and have reallocated them. So the only thing that we're asking for this year out of the operating budget is recreation director. Our part-time administrative assistant at 34.5 hours, and so that's what we're asking for operating. The second support funding that we're asking for is establish that community that capital reserve for the park agency. I want to be very clear that at this point, this capital reserve request is for the outside of Barrington Common. This is really for the Ramsdale Lake Park and some of those the park that we continue to try to expand. Just put a 30 by and really trying to kind of end that part to offset some of the levels. They try to kind of main hub playground, the park, and then also multi. I also submitted park maintenance. Off of just doesn't include mowing, like it's nothing to do with like the schools that are necessarily maintained. Actual like, infrastructure. Or
Other than Ramsdale, are there other areas that you're anticipating becoming parks?
we have a couple of ideas that have briefly been kind of touched as necessary works right now. We're really just trying to kind of like fine tune that Ramsdale Lane Park, especially as we and other parks. We really just want to make sure we have that one buttoned up ready.
Okay, thanks. Bill?
Where do you anticipate the funding for the mowing and maintenance and all of that of the grounds? Is that, if that's not included in this, is that coming from somewhere else, or?
Yeah, so that I believe is in the facility. Right now, the highway department.
Okay.
So that person is already allocated with another budget.
Okay.
This is where we get to being consistent, because the library has to maintain theirs and yet the rec doesn't, right?
Right, and then-
And there's going to be increased costs when the library vacates, there'll now be other, where the library was is now going to need, I guess that budget will fall under the town budget. I had a question though. What happens if people say no to this? Are you no longer able to do this for the town?
I think for us, that's really where we're gonna have to go back to the drawing board. We're, as the recreation department, like I trying to expand offering just programs, not just the facilities in the park, but really we just added a full-time employee. Kind of really beef up some of those programs, but we were just like, kind of copying and pasting. We've really been trying hard to kind of give the department the support that it needs to offering quality programs that people actually want. And the offset of that, if this is not a, we're going to have to cut funding somewhere in order to, like, so that you would see that park get expanded at any, I think you would see that it is have to kind of cut back on some of the offerings of that revolving. Tapped out when our is helping.
Yeah, I mean, I recognize you guys are doing a great job. Pumpkin Walk was great, expanding. So I get that. I guess I was just thinking it was weird to put this today. I mean, I can understand why you might have that once the common gets developed out, and now you might have amenities that need to be cared for. But it just seemed weird to carve this out this year when really nothing else has changed. We're talking about the existing properties that have been maintained, right? And really what you're talking about is mulching and things like that. So I wasn't quite sure whether now is the time to actually start a reserve account for this. I don't know, this is kind of odd, and it sort of made me wonder if it's a way just to expand the budget in a new way, because it's something that's already been essentially provided for.
And I totally respect that thought process, and I can see that. I think from our, we are coming here with this capital reserve request for the second year. Last year, this was really not even knowing that the TIP district. So we really identified that the revolving fund is kind of capped out at where we are. We only have one space right now that we can really be able to get that revenue generated and being able to have enough revenue to cover our expenses. Again, our biggest expenses really is our employees, the health insurance that goes along with that for all of those. But we need those people in those positions. So the capital reserve request was originally proposed last year because it kind of identified this deficiency within the growth process. But then this year we worked really hard to really kind of show that Parks and Rec. And I think the district kind of, it fell into place perfectly and kind of like matched our thought process. But this is really us coming here saying that the model that we have is great, but the town is going to continue. Right now, we're pretty tapped out on that.
I don't know, it just seems odd to me that it's existing property. I'm not sure that, to me, I don't know why it's not just folded into the regular operating budget as opposed to being carved out as a separate capital reserve quite yet. I can understand, again, if we're adding more parks and things that you're gonna manage, I can understand. But I guess that's really a question for Con.
Is there an advantage?
None that I can see. The disadvantage I see is that we've got a lot of requests coming down the pike, right?
Yeah.
The capital requests that we already have, as well as bonds for maintaining roads and things. It just seems like it's sort of, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right to me that residents, we're asking them yet one more thing that they should approve for, although it's really something that's been paid for historically anyway out of the budget. Why not?
Well, do you mean out of the budget or out of the revolving fund? Because again, everything except for personnel is the revolving fund.
But I don't think the facilities maintenance was in the past, was it? I assume that was always under facilities. The mowing,
That has been on.
yeah, so I don't,
Yeah,
to me, it's.
but I don't know how long ago, whether it was discussion or actual practice, but we used to allocate things that the highway did, for example, with gravel and those sorts of things. We used to sort of set up a fee schedule from use of the highway crew for these projects. So certainly it's been discussed plenty of times. Whether it actually was in practice, I don't remember. But again, mowing, gravel, preparing things, doing all sorts of work, used to have a charge back to the department if the highway crew did it.
Yeah, and I can see it's hard to suss that out, right? How much is actually being go for what?
Yeah.
But it just seems like, to me, it's not something that should be broken. And I also had a question because the pavilion, well, two questions. One, as we start the the Common, we have Ramsdale Lane. What do you see the use of those two parks being? How do they differ? So we'll have a pavilion at Ramsdale Lane. You have facilities at Ramsdale Lane. We're also going to have facilities on the new Barrington Common, presumably, hopefully. How do you see those two properties serving the needs of the community differently?
So in my mind, what I'm kind of envisioning is comments behind style pavilion. Kind of these are under the Ramsdale Lane Pavilion, we industrial, so it's, we kind of have dual duty. One of the done with them. We need to start moving on, and so that pavilion is really going to house the. That is the number. Additionally, with it being right there next to that playground, we really kind of have that as like that area for people to have their own event happening up there, but also not having it very too long. So that space and with this where skating rink. Well, a lot different.
Because I'm just wondering, I think that there's some association, I know the Swains Lake, we're always struggling to meet our association. I could see that being really useful. I'm almost wondering if rather than setting a capital reserve account for it, whether or not we begin to start to take that income revenue from renting that space out and devote that instead to the maintenance of that property. And now I understand that may not happen year one. I don't know how you're going to have, I don't want you to have to be salespeople either, right?
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm just wondering how that all fits together.
And that's really what we don't expect for rental. Have people that are really talking about just even go. I've realized not like you right during that. So with all of those things that we're offering, there's are going to be other I don't back out of that, and if it's even
No, I get that.
So this time next year I can have a little bit more, but we're really build it, get people excited about it, and
It seems to me that if the rec department is taking $200,000 from the revolving fund to build the pavilion, that any revenue ought to go back to the revolving fund for their use. I mean, that's the way I would look at it.
But what I'm hearing is they're not necessarily expecting to make money because there's electricity, there's personnel costs associated with
Sure.
each of these.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just to clarify, so last year when we did come to, so when we originally came to the ABC and had the conversation, we had actually had, I think it was $15,000 additional in. It was the recommendation as we transition.
Sorry.
So that's where the thought process.
It's actually you who suggested it.
Well, there we go.
There you go,
But,
Dan.
but it's interesting because the library's, now shouldering the cost of their maintenance and things. And it almost seems like it's unfair to the library a little bit. So it's just, I guess it'd be good to maintain consistency. And I guess, to me, I think,
Is that maintenance though, like the employees facility actually by Like, are they buying the salt and all of the stuff that the employees? Because that's really what the intent of this capital reserve is, not necessarily the time it takes to the 102 yards of playground surfacing mulch that I have to get. About $3,000. So it's like those type of things that are really included in this, not.
And I guess I'm not sure I see that distinction. Again, I can see it as you grow and there's new properties being put on, the common is built out and we have something there. I can see it then. When it becomes global, but. Okay.
Something to think about.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Jesse.
Yes, you've been doing a great job. Your whole team, they're so dedicated. Really getting to work with them, and it's quite amazing.
I agree.
So much, I appreciate it. Keep an eye out for our new logo.
Uh-oh.
Hi, Susan. It's a good outing.
I will start out by apologizing that our budget is. Apologize, I keep getting. Responsible for the town, for the inn. Day. Yeah, finally moving, you're already there.
The sign is very clear.
How far are you into the schedule? Do you know?
A couple weeks, actually. Last week. People at very early stage, but just taking all.
Surprises found?
We sort of anticipate, as we had. Really looking. Did have. Otherwise, but it can't be.
I presume you're still.
Like we're on.
So we had a couple of questions that I'm quite sure were forwarded to you. One was relative to the additional costs that we should anticipate.
Oh, I think I'm guilty person who asked for it. Let me just give you some
I didn't want to
background.
throw you under the bus.
Yeah. Well, no, because when we did this last year, there was a lot of talk about what the extra cost would be to maintain the new library. And I think everyone understood that there were going to be more costs. I think what I didn't appreciate back then is that a lot more of the cost would be falling on you that had previously fallen
Thank you,
on
Susan.
the town. And so it makes it hard actually to do this analysis. I was thinking it'd be just the easy incremental, you know, how much more is it going to cost, right? And that's what I was trying to get at, but I've come to realize through this process, because it was all intertwined and it's now being separated out, it's actually harder to get at that true number.
Contracts. Contracts has gone up because that whole space. In talking with Jim Anderson, and I have no that because one is the one of which is solar panels that they that it would definitely defray the cost of the so we're did figure out that for actual costs. First year they positive state negotiation. Unable to negotiate. I guess take in with library building. I added up my adding in it. That's cool. Cost beyond us, but we
So it's included in our
I agree. Yeah.
detailed in that line, so it's hard.
And with that, do you really expect $10,000 for electricity for 6 months? That seems,
I don't, I asked you his experience.
and now
He's a facilities person.
with the electrical costs, is the HVAC system, are they the mini splits? Are we burning propane or oil? So it's all electric, okay, well, that makes a little more. Days.
I can appreciate what you're going through because I had to open up a brand new building and you have no history and it's a dart on a bullseye. You know, you're trying to hit something, so I appreciate that. It is.
So is it safe to assume that with what's on this sheet, the overall impact of the budget is considerably different than what we have? Are you going to update us on that?
I am going to,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
And with the solar down the road, is, I don't know if you even know, is there an anticipation that that's gonna at least put bit of a dent in this electrical bill?
When we did, um, to the, I think without solar at all, if we got down now,
is one that is ground mount can be added in 2 years. Yes. So if we're fortunate,
So has there been an assessment whether solar is viable there?
solar is viable there. Jack Bingham in town has been generous in donating a very generous donation so that if big number.
Thank you.
It's hard to determine the ROI on that when you don't know what the exact cost today of
As Mona said, it goes,
Hmm?
as Liz said, it goes up and down too, so who knows?
The other really important thing about the construction side is the great deal of effort analyzing whether we get solar. Eco rack much more have been.
Did Frisbee give you cost of the electrical cost before?
How can I be politically kind to? Frisbee is owned, Frisbee then owned by HCA. So good luck getting information throughout the process. And we'll be on. The answer to be correct. Because we needed with. And I think Eversource was.
So just, I guess I'm a little bit confused. So the foundation is raising money to put rooftop solar panels and ground mount. So do you expect that they will raise enough money for both of those?
There are, I've helped them. That cost.
So are you going to come back to the town and ask for supplemental funding for that?
We told voters. That's smart. Back again. Here, so. Foundation pretty much,
We haven't seen that yet, though.
well, the money is there. I think they had it.
Should I
signed.
bug Roger about that? He was offended last time I asked him about it.
I've spoken to them and, treasurer. I know they had money at
Okay, who is their treasurer?
Seaboys and basically TDs. I think that money should,
Okay.
yes.
Is she going to be offended if I ask her?
I'm saying there's new dollars that have come in.
Right, and that's what was originally presented. I was concerned when
No, the money,
the offer went out to circumvent that, so that's why I was concerned back in the day.
yeah, they had a certain.
Okay.
And after that point, restricted them.
Sure. Yeah, and that's consistent with the original presentation. But would you send me the new treasurer's contact information? Because I'd like to know what the plan is specifically, where right now I have no clue, which I don't like.
No, I'm sorry, no, that actually happened.
No, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Because we received some funds from them, didn't we? Or did we not?
Oh,
That's what I thought.
but- And then I think there was like 405 coming.
That's what I want to firm up. So I'll inquire and let you know.
So how much is this solar potentially going to cost?
The total. 30%. State rebate. That brings.
Twelve-year ROI. 12-year ROI.
I think.
Well, there should be a way, we should find a way to highlight that, because that's really nice if the foundation does, and I don't want that to go unrecognized contribution. Yeah, exactly. Definitely. It should be highlighted and so. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
No.
I would like the updated first page of what the actual anticipated expenses will be, and that would be all I would ask.
Okay, yeah, I will get that, because we did take out a position.
Right.
So money,
It's sort of a negative positive.
the person
Thank you.
I would also ask that if, as this is a moving target, as you get new information, if you could get that to us as it becomes available to you so that we can see that as soon as it becomes available.
Please, that's great.
So,
Yeah.
definitely, yes,
Yeah.
because today I had the, gave me a quote.
Great. Correct. Every year our discussion comes up with, so what are they going to do with that money? It gets bigger and bigger, which is okay as long as there's an ulterior plan behind it all.
It's going to be very big after.
For the new building, I assume.
This has done some great work, and we decided to try to go with vendor and for side. So apparently, we should replace our phones.
I apologize. Big customer. $1,000 to all of our phones with,
Going to do that.
we apparently have old term phones. Servers expired. And replaced. That together with $13,000. 28,000 for the servers.
How much is left in the, well, I just wonder, it makes sense to do all that now. I mean, obviously, Wi-Fi and all that, and it's expanded. But I'm wondering, do you have enough in your capital reserve to do updates of your software that you're using and things like that? Have you started to consider what those future technology costs might be?
Main one.
Mhm.
I think I was a trustee at the time.
Up for it over a couple of years, and all the money at once. We haven't been on.
Sorry.
So I guess the question is, should we be increasing the amount of that capital reserve to start putting money away for that?
I've thought of that, and I get concerned that maybe it
Yeah.
won't. Concerned about.
If you increased it to 5,000, I mean,
I know
it is
5,000
minuscule.
would not be much, and it would be a
Yeah.
reasonable investment.
And I'd have to ask Connor, but I think politically it would be helpful to specify that you have a particular cost in mind, and that's the reason for the request. And again, I'm thinking that's possible. We always say fire truck, police car, whatever the capital reserve is for. So if you have a specific purchase that you'd like to, undertake right away, I think it would be, as Scott is saying, to, make that warrant article big enough to do it in one shot and get it out of the way.
I mean, there is a
What do you think of that, Bill?
partnership forming here, right? Here, I mean, the trustees could be just paying for that, right? But they're actually doing something that has longer term benefit to the town. So again, there's got to be some way to communicate that partnership and how we work together. It's not just a matter of increasing this budget, but there's other things that they're doing to reduce the budget.
I was talking about increasing the warrant article.
Yeah, I mean that too, right? So it's not, unfortunately, when we just present it as a warrant article, it's sort of, you don't see the whole context of what's happening in the budget.
Well, I think an explanation for that warrant article of all the other stuff that you've just been talking about would be appropriate at that point, so that the taxpayers know all of this is going on. So,
I mean, maybe what we do is we can calculate once you get solar in, and we can say there's $10,000 a year, $15,000 a year saving. Maybe we just go ahead and say, we're going to capture that for, the next couple years to fund this type of thing. And so it's not really a net increase to the town, but it's overall. You know what I'm saying?
I think so. And what I think is consistent with what Bill brought up is perhaps part of a narrative that Connor could have on the website to explain all these upcoming expenditures that you have to deal with. Again, might be politically helpful.
Yes, definitely.
Bill?
I have another question, going back to the phone system. Is there an effort to integrate that with the town? I mean, the town has a phone system here for the town hall and those phones. Police department, fire department, public works, can we all get on one system?
Please press the button and take the parking.
Huh?
I'll just answer. I don't know what that voice was. Basically, that's why we are switching to the company.
Yeah, it's block 5, the same one the town is
And the
using.
town uses that, and that's the,
Yes.
okay, so that was my, to make sure, because there should be some economy of scale if it's a town of Barrington and you have the different departments.
I'm not sure that exists, but it's a nice thought.
Go in that direction.
I think the other big expense that we're looking at for the new building, not related to budgets, here, operating budget, is not yet, is the security system. One source, for the security system.
The town
the
uses
locking.
one source, the fire alarm, the police, like
Right.
the burglar alarm, do we need cameras? We're going to be on 125. A lot more goes on there. How do we keep our patrons safe? Track
So
of
we looked at
what's going
that
on.
for a complete system, which included some cameras, for exterior and interior cameras. The cost for that, the capital cost for that was like $30,000, right? No, $60,000.
It was 60.
I keep thinking 30, but and we budgeted in our building budget, we budgeted $15,000 for security. So we're way off on that. We're going to have to scale back what we do and have the building wired for the ideal, and see what we can do in future. Not that we won't secure, but
No,
we
we'd be,
cannot,
we'd
we
be
can't
secure.
eat $60,000 in the building project budget for that. And these are expenses we just, we didn't have until we got the building and could have that examined. So, and I think there was a maintenance surveillance cost with that. Is that
Yes,
true?
there's always a monitoring cost.
That's more than what we are currently paying. So
Yeah,
those are
it's a-
some of those, we haven't had surprises in the building itself. We've had surprises in these ongoing
The
costs.
peripherals, that's what kills you.
I think we detailed when we met with the ABC last year, a list of what expenses were going to be increased. We just didn't have the numbers. Some of these other.
Right.
Yeah, I guess if they do get the solar, and I'd like to see a way to dedicate the savings from to the library. That would be the fairest and easiest way to go in the clean.
Not sure I know what you mean.
Well, if they're saving, so if we have $15,000 in electrical costs today, they put in solar and it now goes down to $5,000. They should be able to use that $10,000 savings each year and dedicate it to the purchase of a new, computer system or something.
I'm not sure the way it works, but
I don't know either, but there's got to be a way, the way you pay for the software, or something like that, we can do it on a 3-year agreement or something like that.
revenue is just revenue, right, Amy? You can't dedicate revenue to anything or savings to anything. To my knowledge, anyway, without a special fund.
Library revenue?
Yeah, I mean, if they're saving $10,000 a year in electrical, you can't attribute that
Oh.
to them somehow.
No, but
I don't
you-
think that's
you-
possible.
But if they were to have an operating cost of $10,000, that's, a rental of, a rent-to-own type thing of a computer system, that's $10,000, and there'd be no net budget impact.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, I misunderstood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the question for us that we're still evaluating at the trustee level is, we did make the decision to go ahead with current year funds to do the firewall and the phones, for a total of about 16,000 and change, because we knew we had that cash on hand. What we don't know is, I'm not sure whether it's wise to wait until next summer to replace the servers. We should be doing that now as well, or try to just limp along until next summer and just do it in the new building. So we're still analyzing that and the cost implications of that. We would have some additional money to put towards that. If we took a lot of the money out of the tech fund, the capital reserve, then if we were to do it this year, I think the trustees might have to use non-town funds, private funds, in order to make that happen now. So we did what we're going to do.
Again, where does the town uses all sorts of software, yet they don't have a capital reserve account? Where does that funding come from?
Came out of the operating budget quite a few years ago, before Amy's time, I believe. When
So-
when we went to AccuFund and, right, we were getting out of the one that Joanne Smith has.
So again,
Munis-
why is the library
Munismart.
different?
We were going away from Munismart.
Why is the library different? Why not have them do the same budgetary process, put it into their budget?
I suppose that's up to the trustees, and
I'm not sure I'm following the what
So
you're saying.
he's saying to put it in your budget, but I think
I mean, to put in like, whatever.
So the town has
$30,000.
lots of software, and they're paying for that, right? But there's not a separate capital reserve for them to buy computers, buy software, all this. It comes out of their operating fund. For you, we sort of highlight it by having you do a capital reserve.
Right.
And I'm asking, why do we do that when the town operates differently? What's the benefit of that? That makes sense? Should it just be part of the operating budget, not a separate thing for the voters to vote on? It is only
I know.
$3,000. It's almost
It
probably
is a little
more.
wonky, but it kept the operating budget down
Yeah.
by having this separate.
I think if you were to put incredible costs into the operating budget, it would meet a lot of opposition. And you have to consider, Scott, there's a relative situation here, that amount of software in the library budget is a very big item. In a multi-million-dollar town budget, it's not much. So I think that's just something to consider.
I think if we have enough going into this operating budget that's higher than when you look year to year. Granted, it's a new building, but it still is going to look like substantial, much bigger increase than probably any other department. And that's not with any new staff. That's with just expense. It's all reasonable and it's all justifiable, but we're sensitive to the politics of.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Thank you very much.
Awesome. Now we get a lot of effort doing that upgrade and maintaining operations and.
I just threw everything.
Oh, can I mention one other thing related to the library? And that is, it's our understanding that there is a proposal maybe for a buildings capital reserve for building improvement time. The reason I mention it is because the only thing when we looked at the CIP that we anticipated for the library, since we obviously have a library, is that the parking lot for the new library, the road agent took a look at it and said probably good for 10 years with sealing and that sort of thing, but at that point it may be necessary to replace it, and he estimated it cost $100,000 to replace it. So Connor and I talked about, do we set up a capital reserve just for that purpose for the library and put in $2,000 a year for 10 years, or we really fold it into larger capital reserve that I think the town is proposing for town building. I think that latter makes sense. Connor and I are on the same page on that, recognizing that it will be up to the select board when that replacement is done, not up to the trustees. But just made more sense to, it is a town building, it's a town property, so it makes more sense to fold it into that larger.
It's in the CIP though?
It's in the, well, what's in the CIP when I saw it was, I think, some dollar amount
I can look
to,
at it.
in 5 years, to do the resealing of the existing. What we're going to be doing as part of the building project is patching any cracks, resealing, and striping. That apparently has to be done about every 5 years. So, again, not something we've been responsible for in the past because it was done by the town.
Okay.
So we're not proposing warrant articles. Thank you.
We okay?
Thank you.
Thanks again.
I'll put it in the next.
It's the 7th. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Okay, well, we're not going to make 5 o'clock tonight, Amy. I thought without Connor here would make it for sure, but. Okay. Next week we have highway and dams.
Next week is an open.
Oh, and next week, yeah. But are we going to take up highway and that sort of thing next week?
You mean the warrant article?
We could be done by 5 if we wait till next week.
I thought the intent was for this date to be sort of a catch-up if we needed it.
Was my understanding as well.
Okay.
And if not, then we didn't need to meet, or if there's other things we need to discuss, and then we would go back on the 12th and go back into highway transfer dams. But
Okay, I thought we were meeting to talk, at least in brief, about the capital improvement program, CIP.
Yes, we will. Well, it's on the 4th, I think it's the CIP meeting between the planning board and the select board. What date is that?
That would be a Monday.
Yeah, so that would be done before.
No, yeah, that would be a Monday.
Yes,
Then
that
we
would be
vote-
done before, and so we could give a quick update of that. And that's going to be major, right? So one of the things that we'll talk about is all the culverts and dams and things that need to be repaired and how we're going to do that. I presume that will be an outcome of it. So it probably would be good. Would it also be useful we need to do anything with those warrant articles? Can we just knock those off? Are we okay with them? Should we just take that off our list, review it?
What do you think, Bill?
I don't know.
Mona?
But what warrant articles are you talking
Well,
about?
we have a whole list of warrant
Right.
articles, right?
Okay.
And normally they are must-haves. They're just things you got to do. And so rather than worry about them, we could just say to next week, we're done with those, check them all off, we're good.
Part of my questions for Mark, the road agent, is going to involve the paving warrant article. If you look at the transportation fees that we've set aside over the years, I think maybe 7 years worth, it's about $450,000. And I don't see why we don't spend some of that unless there's a, long-range plan that means we need to be gathering up. It's about 60 grand a year, I believe, into the transportation fund, right? Would you guess?
I'd have to look at.
Okay.
15,000.
Okay.
Yeah, because we just put over 15 in for the quarter. So,
We'll put a hold on. We won't finalize that next week.
well, we could at least talk about it. So why don't we say next week, we're going to have a quick review of capital improvement project based on the meeting of planning board and the select board on the 4th, and review the maintenance, the highway and dam budget. Get ready for the next week. Give Mark his due notice of what we like and don't like, and a quick review of warrant articles. That's going to consume our meeting pretty well, I would say.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Sure does.
At some point, maybe I need to take it offline with Connor. Now, I'm still unsatisfied with the budget presentation because it's tough. It's the way New Hampshire does it, I guess, because what we actually vote on is the operating budget, the expenses. We don't vote on the, how much revenue we get, or we don't vote on the net amount of that, right? It's just strictly, here's the operating budget.
Right.
Revenues then come in sort of the back end to determine what the impact is on the tax rate, is my understanding, right?
Correct.
But, the whole way it gets presented to me is sort of leads to confusion. And I almost wonder if there's a reason to maybe it's in not, it can't be on the ballots up, but maybe it's in some of the voter guide. Because, we always say that, for each warrant article, this is going to raise your taxes by this much, 10 cents, 20 cents, whatever it is. And yet those have been the same amount every year. So when reading that, I think each person would normally come and say, oh, I'm going to have to pay extra for this, this, and this, beyond what I'm paying today. But really, they've been paying that amount last year, the year before, the year before. So while on the ballot, it looks like an increase, in reality, it's not a tax increase from everybody's, what we're paying today. Does that make sense?
I don't know. My taxes went up one heck of a lot last year. I don't know what happened to yours. But
That was the
when I
revaluation.
look at those expenses, I think this is going to cost me money.
Well,
That's my personal view.
They do, but in theory, your taxes didn't go up any more than anybody else's, except for the revaluation. I don't know if you.
Yeah, but if I'm writing a check, I don't care if it's for blue cheese. I mean, it's what I'm writing a check for to the town. So whether it be from assessment, the only way I gain from assessment is to sell my house, which I'm probably going to do pretty soon. I mean, it's crazy to me, and pardon the use of that term, to say, well, it's assessment. It's not, it's not what we're spending money on. It's both. It's a package deal in my mind.
But if you look at the total amount of increase, right, it's more complicated than just what's on the ballot. There's many more components to it. And if I look at it, I say, how much money am I spending today on my taxes? How much am I spending tomorrow on my taxes? Right? We already have what we're spending today. What we're spending tomorrow there's an incremental amount. That's what I'm really interested in, right? So your taxes are going to go up $2,000 or whatever, right? It's that incremental amount that I'm more interested in than trying to say, well, your budget, your operating budget is, $1. This warrant article is another $1. This warrant article is another $1. When really it's not increasing your taxes, it's the same amount of money. It's sort of, it makes it look worse than it is.
It actually, I agree. It does, because my understanding, it's a net.
Yeah, so, taxes.
Can I chime in here real quick?
Hey, Connor.
It's Connor. I apologize to come late. I just want to clarify one thing that Scott's saying. Is that okay?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, so what we have to keep in mind is that before 3 years.
Whoop, we lost you, I think. So that's how he feels about it.
Yeah. Well, it's something we can talk about later. And the other thing I've been thinking about is doing a forward look. So we just tend to, and I've been on this beating this drum for a while, but looking not just this year and last year, but looking this year and next year and the future years, and trying to have a look ahead process as well. And that'd be something maybe, I don't know if we would do, or if there's some way to do it, but I think that that's of note to the town as well, especially with all these other mandatory warrant articles, at least mandatory to me, that are coming along.
I would think that would be sort of like a strategic plan for the town,
Yeah.
where we're going, and
Yeah.
and not just from the budget committee, but that would be everybody. We would want participation from.
Right. In some senses, I don't know if you've ever looked at the annual report. It could be in addition to the annual report, right? Because that describes a lot of information. I mean, no one reads about it, but it's almost like, I'd like to know, here's what's coming, here's some of the risks. You can imagine what you put in there, but now that we have the CIP being looked at again, and presumably some sort of decision made on that, it would be useful to begin to present that to the town in some way. Because I think everybody has a right to know, right? And I don't think people fully recognize or appreciate what's coming along, and it's going to be affecting our taxes. So, even $70,000 next year of the rise is already accounted for in this year's budget, right?
But it's going to be a projection of where we think we
Yes.
want to go, and then the voters, bottom line, can say, no, we don't want that, as they do. So it's just this is the direction we think the town wants to go in, or this group.
So we know what the town, where it wants to go to, right? We could plan out the finances of this town with some level of accuracy, I think.
But the voters always get the opportunity to say no. They can vote down the warrant articles. They can vote down the operating budget
Sure,
and so forth.
sure.
And say, okay, well, I don't want to go in that direction.
Sure.
And then I guess would be incumbent on the group to say, okay, well, this is what we've heard, or we need to get other participation from these folks that want to go in a different direction. So I think it's kind of a moving target again of, we can plan, this is what we think, but at the end of the day, it's still going to be.
It is down to the voters, but like our warrant articles that we put through last year, where we said there's a bunch of these that are must-have. They just have to go forward. I'm going to say some of the big ones coming along are must-haves. The causeways, the dams. We don't really have a choice. We have items that are red listed, and so to the extent that we can begin to project that, I think is useful.
I'm back.
Really...
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Where'd you go?
I apologize. My hotspot stopped working. I just want to say really quick that when we funded warrant articles from unassigned fund balance, there was no tax rate impact. And then we started presenting them as a tax rate impact and then paying for them from unassigned fund balance. But 2024 was the first year where those separate warrant articles, half of each of those separate warrant articles was funded from the tax rate. And as a result, our tax rate is going up about 33 cents. And that is consistent with what we told voters, in the voter guide and with the information that was available. So to Scott's point about some of this is already built in, only starting in 2024, half of the warrant articles that were approved in March half of that tax rate impact is built in. So if, for instance, we funded all of the same warrant articles from the tax rate in 2025, half of them would essentially already be built into the tax rate and would not have a net increase of half of that amount. But the second half, paying for the second half, would be a net increase. And then say year 3, if it's all the exact same dollar for dollar, then it would be there wouldn't be a practical increase in the tax rate to pay for the same thing. And that is a consequence. The fact that things are changing is a consequence of how we have changed our mind about paying for the separate financial warrant articles, and just based on the availability of surplus unassigned fund balance. So kind of everything that Peter and Scott and Mona, I know you spoke up also, there's all truth to it, but that's how it's changed, and it was true kind of at different times. And this group will have to decide how we want to share with the voters what the impact will be. I'm proud of the work we did last year in telling residents exactly what the tax rate impact would be. And we'll set the tax rate hopefully tomorrow. But it's looking like the municipal portion will increase from 266 to 299, which if all of the warrant articles passed, it was going to be about a 38-cent increase. And it's 33 cents. Of course, the public safety warrant article didn't pass. So that's going to be almost spot on for what we told residents. If you do this, this is what will happen. And that, I think, if we can continue to build the reputation of doing that with clarity and details, I think that we can help residents make informed decisions. And then the last thing, to the point about residents being able to make the decisions, it's important to keep in mind that, yes, we had, all but one financial warrant article pass in March. Over 40% of people voted no on the operating budget. So it's not like we have some, very strong message from the residents of Barrington that we subscribe to this plan, we subscribe to this future. We are, I don't want to, monger any fear, but we are teetering on a lack of support from the community. I mean, I think in net, we're doing what the community wants, but I don't think that we can be complacent to the extent that we continue to have support from residents, because even just this past March, better than 40% of residents didn't even support the operating budget. And so, that's the challenge to staff, myself, and this group.
Thanks, Connor. Any comment to that?
No, it's something that we'll have to continue to explore in my view.
Okay. So again, next week, just for the review, we're going to get a brief review of the CIP. We're going to review highway and dam, I guess.
Questions for their presentation.
Correct. And review warrant articles. Is that agreeable? Okay. All right.
Does that sound good to you, Connor?
I will be.
Yes.
I won't be here. I'll be joining remotely.
Awesome.
Great. Okay. I would move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Shepherd, aye.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Amy. I'll help you pick up microphones.
Oh, thanks, Pete.
We turn them off first?